When the mundane world of everyday life shatters into chaos, one woman discovers her husband's shocking double life and must navigate a web of deceit and danger. This gripping story will keep you on the edge of your seat as she uncovers secrets that will forever change their lives. Tune in to witness her transformation from a loving partner to a fierce detective in search of the truth and survival. Her hands quivered as she clutched the fabricated travel documents, the hidden strongbox's entrance, still gaping the attic's stale atmosphere, clung to her motes of dust, dancing in her flashlight's narrow beam. She had stumbled upon the safe, while tidying a chore intended to divert her thoughts from John's latest business journey. Now reality seemed to splinter. She arranged the papers across the worn floorboards, her thoughts racing. Passports bearing John's likeness, but with different names, maps speckled with cryptic symbols, notes penned in an inscrutable code. Her throat constricted as she traced a familiar route on one of the maps, exact path John had described for his recent conference in Berlin. Oh God! She breathed, her voice scarcely audible above her pounding heart. Who are you, John? She seized her phone, her fingers unsteady, and captured images of each item. The flash illuminated the attic in harsh bursts, revealing cobwebs and forgotten mementos of their shared existence, a life seemingly constructed upon falsehoods. She compelled herself to inhale, to strategize. Confronting John was out of the question. Not until she comprehended more. She meticulously returned each article to the safe, committing their precise positions to memory. Before closing the door, a shiver ran down her spine. The dwelling suddenly felt foreign, brimming with enigmas and shadows descending the attic steps. Her mind spun. She required assistance, someone with abilities beyond her own. Karen, her technologically adept neighbor, had always been cordial, perhaps overly so at times, but her expertise could prove invaluable. She paced her kitchen, rehearsing her cover story. A surprise for John, research assistants, nothing suspicious. When she finally mustered the courage to approach, next door her palms were slick with perspiration. Karen answered on the second knock, her familiar grin faltering as she observed her drawn face. Are you all right? She fabricated, forcing a smile. Just. I need a favor. It's for John. Inside Karen's cluttered home office, her carefully constructed narrative began to unravel. Karen's keen eyes honed in on the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers drummed restlessly against her thigh. Spill it, Karen stated, leaning back in her chair. This isn't about a surprise party. She hesitated, then produced her phone. I discovered something, she confessed, and I need your help to decipher its meaning. Karen's eyebrows shot up as she scrolled through the photographs. Holy! She gasped. Are these genuine? I believe so, she replied, her voice barely a whisper. Can you? I don't know. Decrypt any of this. Karen's fingers flew across her keyboard, her expression growing graver with each passing moment. She watched a knot forming in her stomach as lines of incomprehensible text streamed across the screen. This is some heavy-duty encryption, Karen mumbled. But yeah, I think I can crack it. Give me a few days. She nodded, relief mingling with a growing sense of dread. Thank you, she said. I owe you tremendously. You owe me answers when this is done, Karen responded, her eyes never leaving the screen. Be careful, whatever this is, it's not trivial. The subsequent days blurred into a haze of apprehension and sleepless nights. She flinched at every sound, convinced John would somehow materialize and demand explanations. She plunged into her work, churning out designs with frantic intensity, while her mind whirled. On the third day, Karen called. I've got something, she stated, her voice taut. You need to see this. She raced next door, her heart lodged in her throat. Karen's office was a disarray of energy drink cans and crumpled papers, her eyes rimmed with dark circles. I managed to decode some of it, Karen announced without preamble. This is serious. There's mention of a warehouse coordinates, something about a drop happening soon. Her blood ran cold. Where? Karen pointed to a map on her second monitor. Here, it's not far, maybe an hour's drive, but you can't seriously be thinking of. I have to, she interrupted. I need to know what John's involved in. Karen's face creased with worry. At least let me assist. I can disable their security cameras, give you a window to get in and out. She nodded, gratitude surging alongside the fear. Okay, let's do this. The following day was a whirlwind of preparation. She sketched out the warehouse layout, based on satellite images, marking potential entry points, and hiding spots, she practiced moving silently through her house. Wincing at every creak of the floorboards, as night fell she donned her makeshift spy attire. Black hoodie gloves, small flashlight, she caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror, and scarcely recognized the resolute woman staring back. The drive to the warehouse felt interminable, her hands clenched the steering wheel, her mind racing through every conceivable scenario. By the time she pulled into a shadowed spot near the building, her nerves were frayed to breaking point. Cameras disabled. Karen's voice crackled through the earpiece. "You've got 20 minutes max." She took a deep breath and slipped out of the car. The warehouse loomed before her, a colossal shape against the starless sky. She glided along the perimeter, locating the side door Karen had remotely unlocked. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of metal and oil. Her flashlight beam pierced the darkness, revealing towering shelves and enigmatic crates. She moved cautiously, her ears straining for any sign of movement. A murmur of voices sent her diving behind a stack of pallets, her heart hammered as footsteps approached, then receded. She peered out, her breath catching as she recognized a familiar silhouette. Mike, John's longtime friend and golfing buddy. "The shipment's on schedule," Mike was saying to someone just out of sight. "We'll make the drop at the usual meeting point." Her mind reeled. Mike involved in this too? She waited until the voices faded before creeping towards a small office at the back of the warehouse. Inside, she found a locked drawer. She fumbled with a bobby pin, silently thanking Karen for the impromptu lockpicking lesson. The lock yielded with a soft click. Her hands shook as she rifled through the contents. Finally extracting a slim folder, she flipped it open, her eyes widening at the details of an upcoming meeting. John's name prominent among the list of attendees. The sudden sound of approaching footsteps sent ice through her veins. She scrambled under the desk, clutching the folder to her chest. The door creaked open. "Could have sworn I heard something," Mike's voice muttered. She held her breath, willing her thundering heart to quiet. After an agonizing moment, the door closed again. She waited, counting to 60, before slowly uncurling from her hiding spot. She tucked the folder into her bag and crept back towards the exit. Every shadow, no potential threat. Outside, the cool night air hit her like a physical force. She sprinted to her car, adrenaline coursing through her veins. It wasn't until she was miles away that she allowed herself to breathe. The implications of her discovery crashed over her in waves. John's double life, Mike's involvement, the danger, they were all in her mind, spun with questions, each more terrifying than the last. As she pulled into her driveway, a grim determination settled over her. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. She touched the folder in her Baga roadmap to the truth hidden within its pages. The house loomed before her, no longer the sanctuary it had once been. She took a deep breath and stepped inside, prepared to face whatever came next. Part 2. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, her gaze flitting between the screen and the front door. John's footsteps echoed from the driveway, growing louder. She swiftly closed the browser tab filled with suspicious bank transactions and opened a partially finished graphic design project. "Hey honey," John called out, his voice strained. "Sorry I'm late." "No problem," she replied, forcing a smile. "How was work?" John grunted, heading directly for his study. The door clicked shut behind him, followed by the muffled sound of hushed conversation. Her heart raced. She strained to discern words, catching only fragments. "Secure, move fast." The clock ticked away precious minutes as she deliberated her next move. She required more information, but how far could she push without arousing suspicion? Her phone buzzed, a text from Karen. "Still on for book club tonight." She bit her lip. She should go maintain normalcy, but leaving now meant forfeiting an opportunity to investigate while John was preoccupied. "Rain check." She typed back, "Crazy deadline." John emerged from his study, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I've got to head back out. Emergency at the office, but we have dinner plans with the Millers." She protested, scrutinizing his face for any hint of deception. "I know, I'm sorry." John grabbed his keys. "I'll make it up to you." The door slammed shut before she could respond. She exhaled slowly, her shoulders slumping under the weight of unspoken words. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating specks of dust dancing in the air. She stood at the counter, mechanically chopping vegetables for a salad. She had no appetite for. Her mind raced, replaying the events of the past few days. The sound of the front door opening jolted her from her thoughts. She whirled around, knife still in hand, to find John staring at her with raised eyebrows. "Whoa, easy there," he said, holding up his hands in mock surrender. "Peace." She forced a laugh, setting down the knife with trembling fingers. "Sorry you startled me, I didn't hear you come in." John's eyes narrowed slightly. "Everything okay? You seem jumpy lately." "Just stressed about work," she lied, turning back to the cutting board. "Big project due next week." She felt John's presence behind her, his hand coming to rest on her shoulder. "You're working too hard, why don't we go out tonight, take your mind off things?" Her stomach twisted. "Actually, I'm not feeling great, maybe we could stay and watch a movie." John's grip tightened, almost imperceptibly. "Sure, whatever you want." As he headed upstairs to change, she let out a shaky breath. She reached for her phone, typing out a quick message to Karen. "Need to talk, meet tomorrow." The attic air was thick with dust and secrets. She ran her fingers along the worn spines of old books, searching for any hidden compartments or loose pages. A floorboard creaked beneath her feet, and she froze, listening intently for any sign that John had heard. Silence. She continued her search, methodically working her way through shelves and boxes. Her hand brushed against something cool and metallic behind a stack of photo albums, heart pounding. She pulled out a small metal box. The lock yielded easily under the pressure of a bobby pin, a trick Karen had taught her. Inside she found a folded piece of paper covered in an indecipherable series of numbers and symbols. "Honey," John's voice called from downstairs. "Where are you?" She quickly replaced the box and scrambled down the attic ladder, nearly losing her footing in her haste. "Up here," she called back, trying to keep her voice steady. "Just looking for some old photos." John appeared at the bottom of the stairs, his expression unreadable. "Find anything interesting?" She forced a smile. "Not really, just a bunch of dusty memories." As she brushed past him, she didn't notice the passport that slipped from her pocket, landing silently on the floor behind her. The cursor blinked accusingly on her computer screen. She stared at the half-finished logo design, unable to focus. Her mind kept drifting back to the coded message hidden in the attic. A notification popped up. Another missed deadline. Her boss's words from earlier echoed in her head. "Get it together. We can't afford any more mistakes." She rubbed her temples, trying to ward off the headache building behind her eyes. How did her life become this tangled web of secrets and lies? The sound of the garage door opening snapped her back to reality. John's home. Early panic set in as she realized she had left one of the forged passports on the kitchen counter. She raced downstairs, heart in her throat, only to find John holding the passport with a puzzled expression. "What's this?" he asked, an eyebrow raised. Her mind went blank. It's for a design project, mock-up for a travel agency." John studied her face for a long moment before shrugging. "Looks pretty realistic, good job." As he headed upstairs to change, she sagged against the counter, relief washing over her. That was too close. The flickering light of the fireplace cast long shadows across the living room. She ran her fingers along the rough brick, searching for any irregularities there. A loose brick near the base. She pried it free, revealing a small cavity. Inside she found a folded piece of paper covered in the same cryptic symbols as the message from the attic. The front door opened suddenly, and she barely had time to shove the paper in her pocket before John walked in. "What are you doing?" he asked, eyeing her suspiciously. She plastered on a smile. "Just cleaning. You wouldn't believe how much dust accumulates behind these bricks." John's gaze lingered on her for a moment too long before he nodded. "Right, well, don't work too hard, I'm heading to bed." As his footsteps faded upstairs, she let out a shaky breath. She retrieved the paper from her pocket, studying the symbols intently. Whatever John was involved in, it was clear the stakes were higher than she ever imagined. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the floorboard. In the guest room, the space beneath was empty save for a small metal box. She opened it with bated breath, revealing a sleek, compact handgun. The weight of it in her hand felt wrong, alien. She had never held a gun before, never wanted to, but now faced with the reality of John's secret life, she wondered if she might need it. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. She hastily replaced the gun and floorboard, heart pounding. She grabbed a duster from her pocket, feigning cleaning, as John appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing in here?" he asked, his voice tight with suspicion. She forced a laugh. "Spring cleaning. Thought I'd tackle the guest room while I had some free time." In the middle of the night, John's eyes narrowed, couldn't sleep. She shrugged, praying he couldn't hear the tremor in her voice. After a long moment, John nodded. Don't stay up too late, we have that dinner with the Millers tomorrow, remember. As he retreated down the hallway, she sank to the floor, adrenaline coursing through her veins. How much longer could she keep up this charade? The attic felt different now, charged with an electric tension, as she carefully moved the painting. Aside, she found a small safe built into the wall. Her hands shook as she input the combination. John's birthday. The lock clicked open, revealing a stack of files. She flipped through them, her stomach dropping with each page. Aliases, bank accounts, details of covert operations. It was all here, laid out in black and white. A name caught her eye. Operation Nightshade. The file outlined a complex scheme involving high-ranking government officials and millions in offshore accounts. The implications were staggering. This went far beyond simple espionage. Whatever John was involved in, it was big, dangerous. A creak on the stairs sent her into a panic. She shoved the files back into the safe, hastily replacing the painting. John's voice drifted up from below. Honey, you up there? She took a deep breath, steeling herself. Yeah, just a sec. As she descended the ladder, she knew one thing for certain. She was in way over her head. Part 3. Her hands shook as she examined the coded message for the thousandth time. The dim glow of her desk lamp cast lengthy shadows across the room, mirroring the dark circles beneath her eyes. She hadn't slept in days, the burden of her discoveries pressing upon her like a physical weight. Her gaze darted to the clock on the nightstand. 11:23 p.m. Time was dwindling, each second drawing John nearer to whatever perilous scheme he had initiated. Her breath hitched as she refocused on the jumble of letters and numbers before her. Come on, she murmured, running a hand through her disheveled hair. There has to be something I'm overlooking. As if in response to her silent plea, a pattern began to surface. She leaned forward, her heart pounding. She scribbled frantically on a notepad, her mind working furiously to connect the dots. Suddenly, it clicked. The seemingly random sequence revealed coordinates and a time. Her eyes widened as she double-checked her work. An abandoned factory on the town's outskirts. Midnight, got you. She whispered, a blend of triumph and dread coursing through her veins. She sprang into action, gathering the documents scattered across the desk. Her hands trembled as she pulled open the drawer where she'd concealed the firearm she'd found earlier. Its weight felt alien in her grip, but she tucked it into her waistband. Nonetheless, as she headed for the door, she paused. She couldn't shake the feeling that this might be her final opportunity. Grabbing a pen, she hastily scribbled a note to Karen detailing her discoveries and the meeting location. She sealed it in an envelope and left it on the kitchen counter, praying it wouldn't be necessary. The drive to the factory was a blur of streetlights and racing thoughts. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. As she trailed John's car at a discreet distance, her mind reeled with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. The factory loomed ahead, a colossal silhouette against the night sky. She cut the engine and watched as John's figure vanished into the shadows. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. The rusted door groaned as she slipped inside. She navigated through the darkness, her eyes gradually adjusting to the gloom. Voices echoed from deeper within the building, guiding her forward. She found a vantage point on an upper level, crouching behind a stack of crates. Below, she saw John surrounded by a group of men. Her breath caught as she recognized faces from the warehouse. This was larger than she had imagined. Phase 2 is a go, one of the men stated, his voice carrying in the cavernous space. We move tomorrow night. John nodded, his face unreadable. And the target confirmed. It'll make quite the statement. Her blood ran cold. Whatever they were planning, it was imminent. She leaned forward, straining to hear more, but her elbow knocked against a piece of metal. The clang reverberated through the factory. Suddenly, all eyes were on her hiding spot. Her heart hammered as she realized she'd been detected. In a split-second decision, she drew the gun and stepped into view. Don't move, she yelled, her voice steadier. Then she felt the men below froze, their expressions a mix of shock and anger, but it was John's face that captured her attention. He looked resigned, as if he'd been anticipating this moment all along. Honey, he said, his voice calm. You shouldn't be here. No kidding, she retorted, keeping the gun aimed at the group. What the hell is going on, John? Who are these people? One of the men started to reach for something in his jacket. She swung the gun towards him. I said don't move. John held up his hand, stepping between her and the others. Everyone stay calm, I can explain. Explain, her voice cracked. Explain how you've been lying to me, how you're involved in whatever this is. It's not what you think, John insisted, taking a step towards her. Stay back. She warned, her finger tightening on the trigger. The tension in the room was palpable. Her eyes darted between John and the other men, who looked increasingly agitated. She knew she was in over her head, but there was no turning back now. You have 10 seconds to start talking, she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. John took a deep breath. Honey, I'm undercover. This whole operation, everything you've discovered, it's all part of a mission to bring these men down. She blinked, her grip on the gun faltering. What? He's lying, one of the other men snarled. Take her out. Chaos erupted. Two of the men lunged forward, while another reached for a weapon. John spun into action, his movements a blur. As he engaged the attackers, her training kicked in. She fired a warning shot into the air, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Stop. The fighting paused momentarily, all eyes on her. She was breathing hard, the gun shaking in her hands. Honey, listen to me, John said urgently. I've been working with a covert government agency. We've been tracking this organization for months, but your discovery, it's compromised everything. Her mind reeled. Why didn't you tell me? I couldn't. The less you knew, the safer you were, John's eyes pleaded with her. But now we're both in danger. We need to get out of here. As if on cue, the sound of approaching vehicles filtered through the night air. The other men exchanged panicked looks. They're here, one of them hissed. John cursed under his breath. Honey, we have to go now. She hesitated, her world tilting on its axis. Everything she thought she knew had been turned upside down. But as she looked into John's eyes, she saw the man she married, the man she trusted with her life. She lowered the gun. Okay. John grabbed her hand, pulling her towards a side exit behind them, shouting. And the sound of boots on concrete echoed through the factory as they burst into the cool night air. Her mind raced with questions, but one thing was clear. Their lives would never be the same again. They sprinted towards her car, the sounds of pursuit growing closer. John slid into the driver's seat, gunning the engine, before her door was fully closed. As they peeled away from the factory, tires squealing, she turned to John. What happens now? Now, John's jaw was set, his eyes focused on the road ahead. Now we run, and we pray we can stay one step ahead of them. She nodded, her heart pounding. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. They were in this together, for better or worse. The car vanished into the night, leaving behind the shattered remains of their old life, and racing towards an uncertain future. Part, for her heart throbbed against her ribs, as she peered through a gap in the drapes. Headlights pierced the gloom, inching closer to their suburban residence. She turned to John, her voice barely a whisper. They're here. John nodded grimly, his jaw tight. We don't have much time. Remember what I told you about the passages? She nodded, her mind reeling. Only days ago her greatest concern was meeting client deadlines. Now she was preparing to escape from dangerous criminals. She seized a backpack, stuffing in the files. They had collected evidence of John's undercover work and the organization he had been investigating. John moved with practiced efficiency, barricading the front door with a heavy bookcase. We'll use the back exit. Stay low and don't make a sound. As they worked, her mind flashed back to the moment she had discovered John's hidden safe, setting this entire ordeal in motion. The initial shock and betrayal had given way to a grim determination. She might not fully comprehend John's world, but she was committed to seeing this through. A muffled crash echoed from outside. She flinched. They're breaking in. John grabbed her hand, leading her to a concealed panel in the hallway. This way, he whispered, sliding it open to reveal a narrow passage. They slipped inside, just as the sound of splintering wood filled the air. The intruders had breached the front door. Her breath caught in her throat as footsteps thundered through their living room. The passage was pitch black and claustrophobic. She trailed her hand along the rough wall, following John's lead. Her other hand clutched the concealed weapon John had insisted she carry. Its weight felt unfamiliar and terrifying. Check upstairs, a gruff voice ordered from somewhere in the house. She froze, but John tugged her forward. They couldn't afford to hesitate. The passage twisted and turned, guiding them through the skeleton of their home. Her designer's eye had always appreciated the house's quirks, never suspecting they masked a network of secret routes. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a narrow staircase, "We're heading to the attic," John whispered. "There's an exit that leads to the backyard." As they ascended, she heard muffled curses and the sound of furniture being overturned. The villains were tearing the house apart searching for them, and any evidence they might have left behind the attic was musty and filled with shadows. John moved to a section of wall that looked no different from the rest. With practiced ease, he triggered a hidden mechanism. A portion of the wall swung outward, revealing the night sky. "Ladies first," John said, with a wry smile that didn't reach his eyes. She hesitated for a split second before easing herself through the opening. The cool night air hit her face as she carefully navigated the sloped roof. John followed, closing the secret door behind them. They made their way to the edge of the roof, where a sturdy trellis offered a path to the ground. Her hands shook as she gripped the wooden lattice, but she forced herself to climb down. Her feet touched grass and she allowed herself a small sigh of relief. John landed beside her, immediately scanning their surroundings. "We need to move. Karen's house is our best bet." They sprinted across the backyard, keeping low and sticking to the shadows. Her lungs burned, but fear propelled her forward. They reached the wooden fence separating their property from Karen's. John gave her a boost, and she scrambled over, wincing as a splinter caught her palm. She helped John up, and soon they were racing across Karen's meticulously maintained lawn. They reached the back door, and she rapped urgently against the glass. Seconds stretched into an eternity before a light flicked on. Karen appeared, her eyes widening at the sight of them. "Honey, what's going?" She stopped short, taking in their disheveled appearance and the wild look in their eyes. "Get in quickly." Once inside, she collapsed onto a kitchen chair, her legs trembling with leftover adrenaline. John remained standing, peering out the window. "Karen, we need your help," she said, her voice hoarse. "It's a long story, but we need to contact the authorities securely." Karen's brow furrowed, but she nodded. "Give me a minute to set things up." As Karen busied herself with her computer equipment, she turned to John. The weight of everything that had happened crashed over her. "John, He knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. "I know, honey, I'm so sorry for keeping you in the dark. I thought I was protecting you, but," she squeezed his hands, "we'll talk about it later. Right now, we need to focus." Karen returned, her laptop open. "Okay, I've got a secure line set up. Who exactly are we contacting?" John took over, inputting a series of codes that connected them to his handlers. What followed was a flurry of activity as John and she relayed everything they knew about the organization. Key players, hideouts, operations. She watched John as he spoke, seeing him in a new light. The man she married was still there, but now she saw the steel beneath the surface, the years of training and dedication that had shaped him. As they finished their debrief, a wave of exhaustion washed over her. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her drained. Karen offered them her guest room, insisting they stay until everything was sorted out. Later, as they lay in the unfamiliar bed, she turned to John. "Tell me everything," she said softly. "No more secrets." John took a deep breath and began to speak. He told her about his recruitment, the years of training, the deep cover operation that led him to this point. She listened, her emotions swinging between anger at being kept in the dark and awe at the sacrifices John had made. "I wanted to tell you so many times," John said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I was afraid of putting you in danger, afraid you'd look at me differently." She reached out, cupping his face. "I'm looking at you now, John, really looking, and I see a man who's dedicated his life to protecting others. It doesn't erase the hurt, but I understand." John leaned into her touch. "I promise no more secrets. Whatever comes next, we face it together." They fell into a fitful sleep, both physically and emotionally exhausted. When morning came, they woke to news that the authorities had successfully raided multiple locations, dismantling a significant portion of the criminal network. As the days passed, they began to settle back into a semblance of normalcy. They returned to their house, now cleared by the authorities, and began the process of putting their lives back together. It was during this time that she made one final discovery. While reorganizing John's study, she noticed a slight unevenness in the wooden paneling. Curious, she investigated and found a small hidden compartment. Inside was a yellowed envelope containing a handwritten note. As she read it, her eyes widened. The note, penned by the house's former owner, hinted at a deeper layer of espionage stretching back decades. She found John in the kitchen and wordlessly handed him the note. He read it, his expression growing more concerned with each line. Well, she said, a wry smile tugging at her lips. I guess we both need to be better at hiding things. John looked up, meeting her gaze for a moment. The weight of everything they'd been through hung between them, then unexpectedly, he chuckled. The sound broke the tension, and soon they were both laughing, the absurdity of their situation finally hitting home. As their laughter subsided, she leaned against the kitchen counter, eyeing the note in John's hand. So what do we do with this? John considered for a moment, then smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. What do you say we solve this mystery together? She grinned back, feeling a flutter of excitement. Their lives may never be entirely normal, but facing the unknown side by side, that's an adventure she's ready for.